amigas, and welcome to the Gold Hoops and God podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Guerra. This podcast is designed for Millennial Latinas and is fueled by faith and culture. Ignite the fire within. Welcome back, amigas. Thank you for tuning into the Gold Hoops and God podcast. I'm your host, Dr. G. I appreciate you for joining me. If you haven't already, please help my podcast grow by liking, sharing, and subscribing. So let's dive in. Last week, I spoke about dream interpretation and the legacy of singer Selena Quintanilla. And that episode really made me start to think about the company that we keep and who we allow to have full access to our lives. So if you listen to the last episode, you know how I mentioned that, alas, the person who killed Selena Quintanilla actually worked with her very closely and was the president of her fan club. So which is very disturbing. So that's obviously an extreme case. But in general, it is important to use discernment. It's important to think about who we allow to access our home, to access our families, all of those things. And there's a dicho actually in Spanish that goes, Dime con quién andas y te digo quién eres. I love this saying. I think it's so true. For many of us, especially if you were raised in a, shall we say, like more traditional or strict household, there were certain friends that our parents didn't really like. Okay. So I definitely remember there were certain kids that my mom or dad were like, I don't know. I don't know. Because there was a vibe, right? There was just like something is off, right? And so honestly, looking back, I think that there is wisdom in this because as kids, sometimes parents can see things that we can't. So obviously, right, as teenagers, wanting to hang out with certain people, and sometimes those kids are the ones that end up getting into trouble and kind of dragging us along with them, right? Whatever the case may be. So it's really interesting that, especially as children, sometimes we can be naive and inexperienced. Don't even get me started on sleepovers, right? That's like a whole ongoing running joke that a lot of Latino kids are not allowed to go have sleepovers at their friend's house. It had to be family. It's only like the cousins and things like that. And now that I'm older, I get it, right? Now that I'm in my 40s, I totally understand why parents are so protective. It makes sense because there's a lot of craziness out there in the world. So I wanted to share an article. It's on this website called Learning Mind. And it's a really great article that covers different topics on psychology. They do psychology and relationship topics. And this article that really caught my eye is called Six Sobering Reasons to Keep Your Circle Small. I found this article very fascinating because it really resonated with the way that I kind of view friendships. Now, I'm going to go over the 6 points and kind of touch upon each one of them briefly. So, the first point that the article makes is it's science. So, the article says, in 2012, the University of Iowa conducted a research study into just how deep the bonds run in larger groups of friends. The study proved that in groups of more than 6 people, the levels of trust and commitment reported by the participants were much lower than those in smaller groups. So essentially, if you have a big, huge group, it's hard to be super close to every single person in the group. It's like they said, it's science. So in a smaller group of friends, the bonds tend to be tighter. Okay. So the second reason why small groups of friends are arguably better is authenticity. So the article says that a small circle of friends actively chooses each other, be it to hang out with on a Friday night or to confide in when times get tough. So when we're in need of a shoulder to cry on, we don't often have or want a huge group of supporters. We just need those few people to turn to. So essentially, these are the ride or die friends, right? Like all of us, hopefully, have at least 2 or 3 or 4 ride or die friends. I know that I do. I'm very grateful for my friends. The only thing that's tough for me is that my best friends really are in the Bay Area and I live in Los Angeles. And this is sort of a side note, but I've talked to other people who have studied in different states or cities from where they currently live. So, for example, like doing PhD or law school or med school or something like that, or even working in a different place, that sometimes you bond with those people so much during the program, right? So in my case, you bond so much with people during PhD, but then after graduation, everyone kind of moves on, right? Like people get jobs in different places, they move back to their hometown or et cetera, whatever the case may be. And so I still, miss being able to spend a lot of quality time with those friends in person, right? That's the difference, is like I'm not able to spend that time in person as much as I would like. But okay, moving on. So the third point the article shares is you can always be yourself. This really makes sense to me. So in a big group of people, so some might be, let's say in a group of like 10, 12, 15 people, you might be closer to some than to others. And because there's a less intimate bond that you have with some of those people, you might try to blend in with the group, kind of like go along to get along, that type of thing, which means that you might be hiding parts of yourself or not sharing parts of yourself in the bigger group. Very interesting. So point number 4 in the article, these are interconnected, I should say. So point number 4 in the article is called They Know You. So, in a real, authentic friendship, those friendships are based on a deep understanding of each other. They know what you need when you're struggling. They know the perfect birthday gift. They know your sense of humor, that type of stuff, right? They know where you like to go for lunch. All those things. It's because they've spent a lot of time with you and really gotten to know you well that they're able to really connect, which again is a little harder in a big, huge group. So number five is deeper bonds. So the article is saying that deep, intimate bonds also come with the added assurance of judgment-free friendship. So instead of fearing the reactions of a large group of friends, people will feel safer opening up just to a small group because they know that they won't judge you. Again, I think this makes sense. So it's much harder to kind of like share something deeply personal to a group of, let's say, 10, 12 people versus sharing something in vulnerability to a group of 4 or 5 people. I'm curious, as folks are listening, feel free to talk with me on social media. I have my Instagram page where you can follow me. Feel free to comment, DM me. Yeah, I'm curious to see what resonates for people, especially on this topic of relationships. And so moving on to number 6 from the article. Number 6 is called It's Easier. So, and this is true too. Our lives have gotten very busy, right? For most people, if you're in a relationship, you have children, most people are working full time, doing activities for the kids, all these things. The days get very full very quickly. So, honestly, sometimes our lives are just a little too packed and too busy to juggle so many friendships, especially to be a good friend. And this is critical. In order to be a good friend, you got to be there for them, right? You got to make time, call them, check on them, spend time, go to events. Like that's part of being a good friend. And so by having a huge circle, it's very easy to spread oneself thin. And by having a small circle, it's basically like having a small circle allows you to go deeper and to have more fulfilling friendships. And as we're talking about friendships and relationships, social media has really changed the game for good and for bad. So, in the positive side, I'm grateful that I have social media, that I can talk to friends, for example, friends that I made in Spain, friends that I made in the Bay Area, friends who live all over the world now, across the country. I love that I'm able to message them or send them a funny meme or things like that. It's great. It's incredible. So that's a positive side. The negative side is that it can create a lot of drama. I'm sure all of you listening can think of at least one example or have been in at least one situation where something on social media created a big fuss, right? So there's a million ways to handle social media. People take different approaches. There's extremes. So there are people who literally have no social media accounts, no Facebook, no Instagram, no X, formerly Twitter, right? Nothing, and that's fine. It's kind of funny though. I think today in this day and age, that's almost viewed as weird, right? Most people view that as unusual and weird, and I have to say, in the dating world, that's often seen as a red flag because it's perceived as, what are you hiding, right? What are you hiding? Why are you so like antisocial or, you know, strange that you cannot even have like one account? Anyway, that's I've noticed that. It's super interesting. Now, you have people who are on the other extreme, meaning that they post everything. We can call these folks the oversharers, okay? These are folks who really photograph every single moment of their lives. They share every single thought that they're having throughout the day. It's like, hey, I'm eating salad for lunch, or, what are you making for dinner? I'm at the gym now. Oh, I had coffee at Pete's today, right? It's like constant, constant, constant. So, to each their own. You know what I'm talking about. Again, I'm sure all of us have those friends who use social media in that way. And it's up to you, but for me, I really love privacy. I really love privacy. So, ironically, although I have a pretty active Instagram account and I'm on Facebook, I still don't post a ton of personal information. I really try to keep it private. Um, I keep, pictures of my loved ones to a minimum. I don't share too much about what I'm going through personally. That's why that's why I have a therapist. I use my therapist for those things. Or, I talk with my friends about those personal things. I don't put it there on social media. And it's really fascinating. Most celebrities, whenever they're asked about, their journey, their fame, etc., 99% of the time, it's their privacy that they miss. You'll hear people like Cardi B or Lady Gaga, the Kardashians, etc. They really can no longer just go to the supermarket or go to Target. Although Cardi B apparently does go to Target incognito, which is amazing, but usually there's so much attention, paparazzi, etc., that it becomes very hard for them to live a low key life. So, anyway, this is me chatting with y'all, just kind of considering these different questions about social media and relationships. So, in terms of this theme of navigating relationships, I want to encourage my listeners, if you haven't already or if you don't already, to begin using a variety of vocabulary that reflects the type of relationships that you have. So I'm going to repeat that. I encourage folks to use a variety of vocabulary that reflects the type of relationships that you have. I heard this piece of advice many years ago and it made so much sense to me. I really wish people would stop using the word friend for every single person, or bestie for every single person that they know. Okay, not everyone is your bestie. And along with that, people love to use hey fam, hey family, and it's someone that they barely met. So again, for me, I think the perspective that I'm coming from is that I protect my family ultimately. And I would not just call everybody and anybody my family, because it holds too much weight in my life. And then friends too. I think the issue is, by using the word friend, it's not always accurate. If it's a coworker, it's a coworker, right? If it's a neighbor, it's a neighbor. If it's your hairdresser that you used to go to, that's who they are, right? In other words, and I understand, please don't misunderstand me. I get it that you can become friends, right? You can become friends with all of those different people over time. That's fabulous. My point is, to call friend every single person, it's not accurate. It's just not accurate. And it doesn't mean that you don't care for them. So let me be clear. It doesn't mean that you don't care about those people. They're just different types of relationships. Those are each individually different types of connections. The coworker connection, the neighbor connection, the church, your church acquaintance connection, right? The lady who helps you at the coffee bean or Starbucks, you see them every morning, right? These are different connections. Again, treating human beings with respect and love is a wonderful thing. And it's important to be precise. I'm all about precision. I think being precise in terms of vocabulary is really important. So moving on. If you all know, I'm an Aries, fire sign is my sun sign. And if you know an Aries or any other fire sign, you know that our cutoff game is strong. So, so the title of this episode is called Blocked and Blessed. And I wanted to talk about this topic of blocking someone or cutting someone off. Now, I believe that it is a skill that's important to learn in terms of letting someone go in love. All right, let me explain. Letting someone go in love is recognizing that maybe it's not the healthiest situation and you wish them well in their life and future endeavors. So it takes practice, it takes time. And for me, I feel like, as a healed person, or as a person who's undergoing healing and transformation, being able to let go in love is a beautiful thing. It takes time, of course, it takes time. Letting go takes time, healing takes time. And learning to love someone from afar is also very important. That is a huge life lesson. Learning to let someone go and loving them from afar is a really big life lesson. There's several people that at one time I was close to them, and I genuinely wish them well. I hope they're doing well. I hope that they're doing great. However, I simply cannot be around them anymore. I simply don't see the purpose in maintaining a connection, because I have changed, right? I've changed. I've grown exponentially, especially these last, 3-4 years, I would say. And if it's someone from the past and they have not grown and changed exponentially, it's like there's very little to go on, like there's very little to talk about or to share, because what ends up happening, what I've noticed, is like all we're doing is talking about the past, right? Oh, remember 10 years ago, remember 15 years ago, da 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 da. And it's like, okay, that's okay, but there's a limit. There's a limit to that. So it can be for many reasons. And honestly, sometimes people just grow apart. I think all of us have those friends that we've just simply grown apart. Our lives have taken us in different directions, which is fine. It's okay. And this goes for friendships and for romantic relationships. I mean, a lot of times you'll hear people describe why they broke up as we just grew apart. We just want different things. We have different goals. And that's okay. It's okay. In other cases, staying in a relationship is just toxic. So, as folks are becoming more aware of the importance of therapy and the importance of healing and doing self reflection, people are waking up. People are waking up. So, women are really realizing that even family members can be detrimental to one's mental health. Unfortunately, when people come from toxic families, when there's abuse, trauma, etc., sometimes the best thing that a person can do for oneself, for one's mental health, is to take a step back. That's so real. That is so real. And it's not easy. It's not easy to navigate that. I would say, especially in Latino culture. Latino culture is a very family oriented culture in general. Mental health, going to therapy is not always fully accepted, right? It's starting to be accepted slowly but surely, but it's still in the process. And so, when someone realizes that someone in their family, or maybe several people in their family, are actually really detrimental to their mental health, taking a step back can be difficult. It can be seen as like they're abandoning the family or things like that. Who knows, right? It can be met with all kinds of challenges. In romantic relationships, so again, we may know friends, we may, ourselves be this woman. Alas, women sometimes stay in a bad situation because they think that they cannot do better. Like, they deep down are scared. They're scared either to be alone, there may be financial constraints. To take it a step further, you know, even for some women, there's even immigration issues, right? To where a person might have their visa, but it's through marriage, and by leaving, it will really put in jeopardy their citizenship application, for example. Okay, there's all kinds of reasons. It is very complex. Sometimes couples will try to stay together, you know, in some ways to keep up appearances. In some ways, they'll say it's for the children. We got to stay together for the children. It's hard. But oftentimes, the healthiest thing to do for the kids, with the kids in mind, actually, is to part ways. Sometimes that is the healthiest option, is to part ways and, live and let live, do the co-parenting, but kind of dissolve the romantic relationship of the couple. And of course, there's a million different scenarios, a million different reasons, variations, etc. These are just some examples for us to think about. The point of the story, though, is to highlight the importance of self-worth. More and more, I'm seeing how critical self-esteem, self-worth, how important all of that is in everything, in navigating life, and not only navigating relationships, but in navigating, pursuing a raise, in pursuing any new projects, any of that. It comes down to, what do I believe I can do? What is my self-worth? Because when a woman lacks that inner strength, or hasn't developed that inner strength, what ends up happening is that she'll often accept less than what she deserves. and she may accept mistreatment, and that can go, that can be verbal abuse, that can be physical abuse, that can be all kinds of financial abuse. That's a thing too, right? There's a whole array of consequences. However, when a woman has a high sense of confidence, a high sense of self-esteem and self-worth, she won't hesitate to walk away. She will walk away. She will build a new empire, right? She will walk away from anything that does not serve her, be it bad relationships, bad jobs, anything toxic, right? When you have that inner strength, you know, it really does fuel that decision making of like, okay, this isn't working out. I'm moving on, right? So, amigas, as we wrap up this conversation, I hope it's been helpful to you. I want to give you your soul work or your homework for this episode. So, this is my question, my reflection question for today. Is there anyone in your life right now, in your inner circle, that deep down inside you feel uncomfortable around? This is tough. This is deep. Or anyone in your inner circle, your daily life, that just doesn't really treat you well, that there's something there, there's something off. And I'm challenging us, all of us, myself included, to think about why. To think about, what's really going on there? What's happening? Is it envy? Is it jealousy? Is it narcissism? Is it old patterns from childhood? Let's say it's like from if it's a family member. Is it something that's like generational? I'm just kind of throwing out some examples. So, my dears, these are some questions. These are some questions for self-reflection. Again, the self-reflection is such an important part of growth, of personal growth. And then on top of this, have you made any new connections in this last year? Right? So I know during quarantine, I know during the Rona, we couldn't leave our houses, right? But this is 2024. We're on the verge of 2025, and we can go outside. Thank God. Thank God. We can go outside. So, have you made any new connections? And again, I'm not trying to be too harsh here. I'm not trying to be like extrovert extraordinaire. However, right, this can mean new connections either online. There's so many social groups, there's meetup groups. Getting to know a new coworker, getting to know a new neighbor, anything at all, right? Anything at all. Have you met any new people? Have you expanded your circle this last year? And again, the reason I'm asking this question is because as we grow and expand, you will meet new people, right? As you delve into new things, you will meet new people. So, for example, I started this podcast in May, and in pursuing this, I have met new people, right? Obviously, like I've met new people who do podcasting, I've met new people who are in doing Latina mental health. I've met new people. I went to a recording of a podcast, a live recording last night, right? So you meet new people. You meet new people when you put yourself out there, and you meet new people when you do new things. It sounds very obvious, but it's worth mentioning. So I'm suggesting this because as we grow and evolve, it's important to be intentional. It's important to be intentional about the company that we keep, because we have one life. We have one life to live, right? And it really can be a beautiful life, but I think it's all about dreaming big and make this life the life that you dream of. Don't sit back and let the life just pass you by. That is the biggest, and I've mentioned this before, fairly certain. The biggest regret that people have when they die is the things that they didn't go do. right? The things they didn't explore, the places they didn't go visit, the activities they didn't try. Those are the things that people regret. So, my dears, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. That is all for this week. My reflections. I hope it was helpful to you in thinking about relationships and friendships. Please spread the love, help my podcast grow, especially if you enjoyed my content. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. So, looking ahead to next week, I'm releasing episode 9 next week. And remember, I'm going to do 10 episodes for this first season. So, episode 9 next week is called Sister, Sister. Now, do y'all remember that 1990s show with Tia and Tamara, the twins? Oh my God, that was a really cute show. I loved it. So, next week's episode is going to be part pop culture, part 90s pop culture, and part theological. So I'm going to take a look at some of the most influential sisters in Catholic history. And I mean like religious sisters like Sor Juana and Hildegard of Bingen. So it'll be part pop culture, part theological. You know how I do. And I can't wait for you to tune in next week. All right, hermanas, take care and ciao for now. Bye. Thanks again for tuning in to the Gold Hoops and God podcast with Dr. Guerra. If you enjoyed my content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find me on Instagram at goldhoops_God. New episodes are available each Wednesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Ciao for now.